Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Today is interesting for people who've never seen this background before. I'm actually sitting in a customer's office at the moment, and I'm trying to use my best NPR voice to try not to disturb other people while they're working. A bit of a mismanagement on my end from from a meeting room perspective. So my apologies, and also apologies to my guests for that. But there you go. We'll career on anyway. Today I've got Corrina Owens on. Most people that have been anyway active on LinkedIn will probably know Corrina from LinkedIn. I've seen your face numerous times across the platform, especially talking around all things around ABM and around go to market, marketing go to market, connecting marketing and sales together, and running ABM motions, account based marketing motions, etc. Corrina comes from a background of having worked full time for companies like Gong, for example, where she was working on the enterprise side of things for ABM. On top of that, she also ran the podcast over there, and now in the past couple of years has been running her own consultancy or advisory, working with a number of different companies such as UserGems, Forum, Technomile, GTM Partners, Avafic. The list goes on and on and on. And yeah, so today I'd like to welcome on Corrina Owens. Corrina, nice to have you.
Andy, thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Just out of interest, how many companies are you currently working with?
Yeah, I'm working with a handful of companies right now. And to your point, too, there's different capabilities. So some I'm working fractionally. So I'm entering in as essentially an extension of their go-to-market team. And others I'm advising. So looking at their product roadmap, go-to-market positioning, and really how to advise them on how to scale these types of functions like ABM and demand gen.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit then about ABM, account-based marketing. So like this is a topic that I mean a lot of companies think they're doing, but not doing particularly well, and or like they want to do it, they don't know where to start. So maybe we'll start with account-based marketing. Like where do you start with when you want to start with an account-based marketing motion?
Yeah, it's certainly becoming, I think, more known ABM as a strategy, which is something I've always believed it to be. It's really a strategic way to go to market, uniting all of your revenue teams. So that can be marketing, customer success, sales, of course. Product is a team that I often try to unite into these types of motions and these types of strategies. But for a while, it was seen as a tactic or even a so any of those big box technology vendors, that's what people would think. If I'm going to do ABM, I have to start an RFP process for these tools or technologies. And unfortunately, when you approach it from a technological aspect, you're missing all the strategy, and those implementations always fall really flat. You don't get the adoption, you don't get the ROI, but it's because it's missing that insight, that analysis of who are we going after and why. A lot of technologies are really good for surfacing one or the other, maybe who to go after. But if they are telling you who to go after, it's because they're relying on your source of truth, your data that's telling them who's a good fit. And then they'll layer in some other data signals like second party, third party to let you know if somebody's in market who's a really good fit. But I guess a long way to say I'm really excited this past year. So late into last year, and certainly in this year, people are realizing that with reduced budget, reduced headcount, you need to invest in strategies that are proven to be effective with this do more with less mentality. And you have to be a lot more strategic. You have to be a lot more thoughtful about where you're putting your team's energy, where you're putting your budget. And ABM is just proven to be the most effective strategy for any marketer to deploy when it comes to how are you impacting the bottom line of your business. So I'm really excited that my conversations with companies now are a lot more what I hoped to in the past be, which is a lot more strategic. Okay, why? What segments are we going after? Why are we going after those segments? Being a lot more predictive, understanding too, okay, we decided this segment because it's going to be the quickest to close at this type of value, or we decided this segment because we have a lot of learning to do about this segment. So this is an opportunity for ABM to be really like a testing playground. So long-winded answer is I'm excited that ABM is now at the forefront in the strategic way it should have been all.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. I think to not have as much wastage as well, right? So, like, if you're going after too broad of an audience, then you're wasting money, right? To go to your point about having less resource, and less resource means less money. And if you be more clever with your money, you can probably have more money spent on the resource going implementing and executing, right? So let's maybe talk about execution a little bit. So you've talked about it as a strategy, and you've talked about numerous teams that are in the strategy, sales and marketing being probably the most pivotal. So let's talk about like a company that's starting out their journey of implementing this strategy. Like, where do they begin?
Yeah, great question. I'm always a big advocate of going to the tools and technology where data exists the most. And so oftentimes that's an organization's CRM. Now, I know that people are going to be screaming, like, well, my reps don't enter the valuable data that I need. This isn't really useful. It's all clunky. But there's still so much insight that you can uncover. Like, when did we first have a known visitor at said account? And then how long did it take for that known visitor to become a qualified opportunity? And from that, did we close windows or did we close lost those, and for what reason and why? So much of my work when I'm coming into any organization and they're looking to build ABM is to just kind of understand where have you been. And so oftentimes I'm able to get all of that insight without involving a third party research firm or without buying additional tool sets. I can get a really good starting point at looking at your CRM to paint the picture for me of where have you been? How has it worked? What are the different channels and tactics that you were able to get the audience from? So I would say that having somebody that has a really keen lens of knowing what data to look for is going to be a great asset to you if you're looking to start out your ABM journey.
Okay. So then you just mentioned there as well as around channels and tactics. So let's use some of the companies that you've been working with. So you work with mostly SaaS companies, right? Mostly high ticket SaaS, if I'm not mistaken. But do you have also high volume SaaS in there as well, or is it mostly high ticket?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say it's both. I think that you're going to find the most bang for your buck as far as like ROI from ABM for those higher tickets, longer deal sizes, et cetera, things that are less transactional. But I certainly see a world where you can deploy ABM instead of a traditional lead gen model within those high volume, high transactions as well. It's going to be again about how are you leveraging those account and contact level data insights to then create a really personalized buying experience. But to answer your question simply, yeah, it is great for enterprise companies with a longer sales cycle with a higher ticket.
Mhm. And, like so, when we're getting then into channels and plays, right? Let's take some plays. If I want to go down and like I'm at a point, what do I need to have in place in order to say, okay, now I'm ready to start executing? And then we can get into what that execution can be. But like, what boxes do I need to tick before I can start moving forward with stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Let me make it like even simpler than people might think. I think you can get started with ABM if you have a good understanding of your ICP. So that's a little bit harder, but that's number one. Two, have a Google spreadsheet or an Excel doc. And three, have something that is either an owned or rented channels. When I say owned, I mean like email, like you own emailing your contact database, or rented, which would be something like social media, like a LinkedIn page. That and some budget to spend to that, I think is what you need to get started.
Okay, okay, good. All right. So let's go through the process of that then. So you've got your ICP, you've got that well defined. By the way, I love it, by the way, like the simplicity of it, because everybody thinks like, oh, if I got to do ABM, it's like super complex and I need lots of money and stuff. You really don't. Like that's my experience as well. You and I are 100% on the same page here. So I haven't really given my opinion much at all here, but I 100% agree with you on that. But at the question I'd ask then, okay, so like you've got your ICP in place, you've got your Excel file. What do you put into the Excel file just out of interest?
Yeah. I Okay. So if you're going to take it out of your like single source of truth marketing automation platform or Salesforce, I would caution you to be sensitive about the data that you're putting in or anonymize the data. But let's take persona, so titles. Let's take the firmographic details of the accounts. What industry are they in? What is their annual revenue? If you have that information, and then maybe some key characteristics that would really be beneficial to you. So maybe that's like technographic data. So what are some tools they already have in place or looking to implement? But I'm glad you called that out too, because I do always have to caution everybody, especially in the age of AI and ChatGPT. If you're pulling any kind of sensitive information that would like make somebody like freak out if they knew it was existing somewhere else, anonymize it or just don't even include it in a Google Sheet.
So what you're saying is put on a Google Sheet, open the sharing settings, say it's open for everyone
Right.
as long as they have the link. That's basically that's what I'm hearing. That's fine. Okay,
You'd
no.
be surprised how many people are not as sensitive about it. Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, let's say you've built your audience and your CRM, right? So you've got your ICP, your ideal customer profile, you've got your list of companies, you've got technographic information, you've got firmographic information, you've got demographic information. Are you doing any type of tiering within those accounts then? Like what do you think?
Yeah, you should. I think that when you tier accounts, the purpose of it should be to align specific resources, and that can be programs and that can be internal personnel too. It's a way of designating, okay, these are my high priority accounts, these are my lower priority accounts. And it's a way too to validate your hypothesis. Were we correct? Did these accounts actually engage with us? Did they actually provide meaningful responses back to us? So yes, I would recommend tiering those accounts. And the way I think about it at a very high level, if you're going to tier accounts in an ABM motion, is tier one shouldn't be those accounts that you just know you're going to win. You always win in this industry. You always close them really fast. You don't engage with a lot of marketing content. That's great for always on kind of evergreen campaigns. Tier one should be seen as, okay, these are accounts that we know would produce the greatest business impact for us, but they take a long time. They require a lot of custom information, a lot of bespoke experiences. They're going to take maybe more research and custom development with the team. Those should be the accounts that you classify as tier one. Tier two and tier three to me, like those eventually can be kind of noisy, if you will. Those I like to think of those as like cluster based campaigns. So maybe you group people into some campaigns that are all based around a competitive takeout. So maybe you knew that you lost all of these accounts to a competitor, and you can create some umbrella messaging that's going to resonate with largely all of those accounts. So you're still segmenting the population, you're still segmenting your messaging, but it's not going to be as intense as a one-to-one emotion would be. And those would be what I would consider my tier one accounts.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Okay, so you've tiered out your accounts. You said these are the accounts that like would make the biggest business impact, right? I would also look at that like things like when it talks about business impact, like or how could you identify those as a tier one? It could be based on revenue levels, it could be based on industry, it could be based on company size, for example, it could be based on numerous things, right? Then we get into you've mentioned already before there, like it'd be interesting to see this is maybe within the execution layer, but also maybe before the execution. We're talking about, and this is also a setup thing as well around intent data. So you've mentioned second and third party intent data. So let's dig into that a little bit because I think just to recap, we've gone through what our ICP is. We've created our list of companies that we want to have within that ICP. We've tiered out that ICP, that TAM list of companies that we have. Then we need to then look at like some tools and technology that we're going to have to use then for things like prioritization or to understand what's happening within that TAM list, right? So if we're talking about second and third party intent data, like how are you attacking that particular part?
Yeah, I think that so some examples for what this could be. So some third party intent signals could be things like company news alerts. So maybe some company just had a really big influx in hiring or they just raised their next fund. That can be an indicator to you that they may or may not be more likely to be in market to consider your solution. That could also be things like you're seeing that they're spiking with a competitor. So maybe you saw based on a web crawl that this customer you have been trying to reach actually just got a new testimonial or a case study with a competitor of yours. That's a great way to leverage data that's not happening in your world, in your ecosystem, so in your email inbox or on your website. That's how I like to classify any kind of second party or third party is what is your audience doing outside of things that you know and you control, like your website, like your interactions with your sales team, and then leveraging that to be a signal. And I think that that's actually what's becoming so crazy being in B2B because you're always getting all these new nomenclatures and new buzzwords, but we're starting to say intent less. And I think that's because it ended up getting such a bad rap. I think a lot of these intent providers, they kind of sent you data that was behind a black box, if you will. And there became a lot of distrust with that because you didn't quite know the relevancy of that intent, right? Is this something that's really old and inactive? Is this a bad IP address? Is this just data that is just it's too much of a bunch of other algorithms telling me that it's in market? And then we found out that that wasn't a really good guiding signal. Now I think a lot of tools and technology that are out there that are able to provide you second party and third party intent data, they're doing a really great job of removing that black box layer to let you peek behind the curtain to see, okay, why did this machine learning algorithm tell me that they might be in market for me, so that you can then evaluate the relevancy and trust in that before you action off.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I also think as well, those some of those platforms that you just mentioned toss an absolute arm and a leg, and you don't know what's going on. There's one in particular that I'm not going to mention the name of, but there was a movie that Bruce Willis was in where little kids see dead people, and it rhymes with that.
Rhymes.
That is, say it again. Sorry.
No, no, no. No, I was making, yeah, it rhymes.
It rhymes. It rhymes. It's basically the same word, but it's spelled slightly differently. Like again, my experience with that specific platform, which will remain unnamed, but Bruce Willis was in the movie where the kids see dead people in, and there's five other of them. The, if you haven't got it yet, you've been missing.
You can just go to the next episode.
Exactly. Basically, like my experience with that specific tool is one, it's super expensive, and second of all, like I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, right? So, like, so a simple setup that I've looked at with some of the companies that I work with is a mix of the third party. I haven't necessarily used too much second party, third party and first party, but first party also anonymous data. So, like, for companies that are visiting your website. So I'd have a very simple tech setup, and the third party would be something like Zoom Info, which would be using Bombora, right? We'd already have Zoom Info, which the sales team be using, and then we'd be just understanding, okay, what's being talked about within the market, which companies are looking for my specific type of software, whatever I'm offering, right? And then that paired as well with lead feeder data or deal front data. But you can also use other tools like Lead Forensics, or you could use for example, Albacross is another one. There's a couple of tools out there. Also another one that I've seen this works pretty well is Clearbit as well. You can also have that as running the script on your site, right? That tends to be a bit more expensive than the others. But pairing like, okay, what's happening outside your site? Like what's happening on your site anonymously via those those tools like a lead feeder, for example. And I'm also quite like biased towards lead feeder. I used to be the CMO lead feeder, so I'm very biased towards it. So lead feeder and then also for example, the involves body or CRM that's recognizing people that have visited your site. They're de-anonymized, so they've filled out a form somewhere, and that's like more than enough to at least allow you to start creating audiences, like without having to go and invest in a tool like the one from the movie that Bruce Willis in, where the kids see dead people. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Andy, you just described a perfect playbook that I think almost every organization out there can implement today. And what I like about what you said is that it's, again, the relevancy, right? So what if you're selling a sales automation platform? If they're looking for it, but have never had any engagement or recent engagement on your website, maybe even like critical pages on your website, like case studies, pricing pages, request a demo page, then to your point, but we shouldn't be doing this spam cannon outreach. Oh my God, saw this company might be looking for a sales intelligence platform. I must reach out now. Pair it with what you know about how they're interacting with you too. And even to your point too, even if it's anonymous, to make that outreach more meaningful. And your outreach back shouldn't be, hey, I saw from, said tool that you were searching for sales intelligence platforms, and then you were also on my website. Let's talk. No, that's not helpful. Think about taking those data points and then crafting a messaging that is helpful. So, hey, saw that you just raised X amount of funding and hired this amount of employees. We have a solution that helps your sales reps get 10 more meetings, blah, blah, blah. So having that relevancy and then personalizing it to the company, I think is key. And you just described a really great play that doesn't cost a ton of money. It more so is connecting your data sources and then marrying it with effective outreach.
100%. I think that effective outreach, as you said there, is something that, like, you joked a little bit about, like, hey, like, I see that you've been looking for this particular sales outreach tool, and I see that you came to my website, so let's talk. Like, you'd be surprised how many sales reps actually go with that. Like,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
And that's why we got in the bad rep of like outbound is dead, or these tools are garbage. It's how you
Get outbound is dead. Get
yes,
outbound is dead. That's
as
the
it
thing.
should be. That never should have been how we action off this data in the first place. It's just lazy. It's lazy and it's ineffective, and nobody would want to read that email. So I don't know why we're sending that email.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And just to finish up the point on the intent data piece as well, like as you mentioned before, that there's like it's gotten a bad rep as well because Hasn't been packaged very well as well. I think and it's been super expensive and not packaged very well. A good example of that when it comes to second party data would be the like the G2. Like I love G2, like I love the review platform, but their intent data is shit. I'm sorry. The intent data is lovely to look at, but like to implement it, like their original intent data that they gave across was like, here's a spreadsheet, and we'll try to connect this up to your CRM, and then marketers were like, I don't know what to do with this, right? Like, and if marketers don't know what to do with it, sales teams certainly don't know what to do with it, right? And to go to your point from before, like, what can a seller do with the fact that somebody's been comparing your product against a competitor, you know?
By the time they're doing that, I think research shows that they're like, they've already made their decision. This is just backing up. So, yeah, how relevant is it at that point? You're kind of a little bit too late to the game if that's the signal you're going to be actioning.
Yeah, I think it's really good information to have, but I think the companies that have been offering this information, for example, the G2, and as I said, I love G2. Like they're not quite the same. I don't put them in any way in the same box as the last company that I was referring to. But I just think with that specific intent data piece, like it just wasn't packaged very well, and I just think it was just too expensive to be able to see any benefit from it. You
Yeah, I
know?
think that they do themselves a disservice when they package it as a silver bullet to all your revenue problems, right? That's not how it should be packaged. And that's where I think, unfortunately, a lot of those providers, like they just dug their own grave for that. You've really got to enable people effectively on how to use this data, the value of this data, what it means,
Mm.
versus just selling it as a silver bullet to all your revenue problems.
100% agree. 100% agree. Okay, let's get into it real quick. So we only have a couple minutes left, just around like some of the execution then, like marketing execution, right? So you've got your intent data in place, you've created some audiences, you've understand what's the lowest hanging fruit, you understand like you'd be able to craft a message to be go after a specific audience based on first party and third party intent data, for example. Now let's talk about like some of the more fun ABM plays that you've done, because like I think ABM is good fun. Like you just need to like it really helps you be creative again as a marketer. It helps you like create specific campaigns to go after a specific company. Like an example that I was working on before was like we were trying to get billboard advertising outside of a specific office, because we wanted to go win the specific company. And we didn't do it in the end because it ended up too expensive, but we were pretty close, pretty close. So like I want to hear about some of your interest in plays that you've worked on.
Yeah, well, I love what you just said a little bit ago is like how it really lets marketers do what they're really good at, which the best marketers are effective storytellers. And when we're doing a one-to-one motion targeting a specific account, you're getting to be like riding shotgun with the sales team. You get to be throughout the entire buyer's journey instead of just being that kind of passing the lead on, passing the MQL on, and having them own the rest of the buyer's journey. So what I always encourage anybody that's looking to get value out of ABM is start with deal acceleration plays. One, sales is just going to get up to speed so much quicker about the value that marketing can offer because they're riding shotgun with you too. They get to see how you ideate a campaign, the types of channels that you're going to use, what works, what doesn't. And then you're getting to show too the value of being incredibly personalized. And I don't mean like first token personalization, name here, company logo here. That's not personalization. Personalization is something where only the account could read what you're sending to them and make sense of it. That's effective personalization. And that's something you're going to get by collaborating with the sales team, listening to those sales calls, going through email transcripts, reading the company social pages, reading their posts, reading their earning calls, getting to know their vernacular, their pain points, and then marrying that with your differentiator. And your differentiator should be a essay. It should be 1 to 3 max reasons why you're different than anybody else and best equipped to solve their problems. So tactic for that could be a one-to-one landing page that anytime they land on your site, it's personalized to them, or maybe it's off your site and it's something your sales rep can use in email follow-up communications. But it's that messaging, it's crystallizing what you know about them and how you're uniquely best fit to solve that for them. And that should be table stakes, but it's not. So if you do just that, that's going to stand out from the competition when maybe you can't beat out the competition on price. Maybe you can't beat them out on features and functionalities, but you could beat them out on being a really effective marketer and going to market with sales in a way that's highly personalized to the account.
Yeah, and I always say to my sales teams as well to get them on board. I say Hey, look, we can make sure that your account that you're looking to speed up the deal, we can make sure that we're the first thing they see in the morning when they get up out of bed, and the last thing that you see at night before they turn off their laptop, you know?
Love it.
So let's surround them, right? But hey, Karina, look, we're just coming up on time. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting speaking with you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I really enjoyed this conversation. You clearly know what you're talking about. I love when somebody can get out of strategy and just into this is what works. So kudos to you. And thanks for having me. If anybody wants to connect, I'm always happy to talk shop. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Corrina, Corrina Owens.
Right. Karina, I'll make sure that all of your stuff is shared as well in the description of this. And thanks a million for coming on.
Thank you. Talk
Yeah, guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Thanks, Karina.